My name is Meagan Patterson, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology and Research and Education at the University of Kansas, and I study children's attitudes about social groups, including race and gender, and the way that social group memberships influence the development of personal identity. In this study, we conducted interviews with about 100 children, ages 6 to 11, and we interviewed the children both before and after the 2008 U.S. presidential election. We were interested in children's perceptions of the candidates in the election, their perceptions of the role of race in the election, and also their opinions of how others would perceive the different candidates and how race would affect voters' perceptions and voters' behavior. One of the major questions we were addressing in this study was whether children's aspirations to become president would potentially be influenced by the 2008 election and the outcome of the election. So one of the questions we asked in this study was just asking children, do you want to be president? Would you like to be president when you grow up? And we asked this both before and after the election, and wanted to see if rates of desire to become president would increase, particularly for African American children, from pre to post election. And we found that, in fact, rates of interest in becoming president did not change from pre to post election for children from any racial group. However, African American children were high in aspiration to become president both before and after the election. So that's something that would be another possible avenue for future research, looking at, does that high level of interest among African American children continue into the future? One way that KU has really helped to support this research is that I did receive a new faculty grant, particularly for paying for students to be able to work on the project and go out and conduct interviews and collect data. One of the things that really interested me about coming to KU was the connection to the Lawrence community. So the idea that KU has connections to schools and that people in Lawrence feel so positively about the university. I think one thing we need to do is continue expanding the research on children's perceptions of politics. So this study was one of the first to look at, for example, children's sources of political information. My next project is going to be a project about children's perceptions of social class. So that's another thing we really don't know a whole lot about. So we're going to be looking at children's perceptions of social class. How aware are children of class-based differences? What are children's impressions of rich, poor, middle-class people? And then how does this tie into other factors that we know about from children's development? So for example, their perceptions of justice and fairness and equality. So that's where I'm going to be going with my next study.